Paltrocast.
Getting it started here, Matt, how is your day going aside from having to talk to this guy, asking the same 5 questions over and over and over again that you're usually getting in interviews?
Well, yeah, talking to a random guy on Zoom is not usually how I spend my mornings, but there's worse ways to spend it. It's going pretty good today. It's the heat wave's over in LA, which is nice, and I'm finally wearing a sweater, so that's I'm feeling fine.
Well, an on-brand sweater, because we know that you love Costco from
It
the Instagram.
didn't even plan that.
Yeah. Did you grow up going to Costco a lot, or did that become hey, I'm initially not making a lot of money as a comic. How can I save bucks? And that became the Costco thing.
Yeah, I didn't really grow up going. I grew up going. I think it was called Sam's Club back in the day.
Yeah,
it was
that's
like
the Walmart one. Yeah.
Yeah, and when I moved to LA, my wife and I were like, let's go to a friggin' Costco. Let's start going there, And then it's just a magical place, especially the California ones. You're like, the food court's on the outside. What a dream. It's exciting.
Did you ever have a Gene Simmons sighting at Costco?
Does he go to Costco a lot?
Yeah, some of the time TMZ gets Gene Simmons from Kiss. It's at Costco.
Wow. No, I don't think I've seen any celebrity, but I'm always so jazzed up when I get there. I'm too focused on the deals, Gene Simmons could literally slap me in the face and I'd be like, look at that couch. It's only $3.99. Get out of here.
So when you go to Costco, do you save your appetite to get the cheap pizza slice, the chicken stick, or is it called the chicken roll?
Chicken bake.
The chicken bake. Do you get the chicken bake, the pizza slice, and the parfait, or better?
Back when I was a younger man, I used to get all three, of course, but in my aging guts would not allow all three to party at the same time. So I will plan my day. I'll go for like a run in the morning and I'll be thinking about getting a hot dog the whole time. I'm like, I'm going to earn this hot dog somehow so my body doesn't punish me later.
Well said. Well, we were connected by the wonderful folks from OFTV because you are on one of these great upcoming specials. When did you actually film it?
It was a couple months ago. Yeah, they've been really hammering out these tapings, and lucky enough, got asked. First of all, I got an email from OnlyFans, thought it was spam.
Right.
As you would, you're like, in what universe is OnlyFans messaging me about something? It must be terrible. But
well, in all fairness, if I can interrupt, the other Matt O'Brien on Instagram, you would see why he would be an OnlyFans kind of guy because a lot of Speedo beach pics.
Yeah, there's a few sexy Matt O'Briens running around, and I'm happy to report I'm the least sexy of all of them.
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. So I interrupted you right there. So you were talking about you got the email from the OnlyFans team.
Yeah, and they were like, we're filming these comedy specials, and they were like, there's no limits on what you can say and just kind of do whatever and just be funny. And it was so loosey-goosey. I'm like, how do I not do this? And then they were also like, hey, we're going to give you an OnlyFans account and like a verified account. And I'm like, well, this is my excuse. So now I'm on OnlyFans and I'm making it happen. And I think they're going to release my special soon. It's not out yet, but I was really happy with how it turned out. There was a hell of a production.
And that's just one of your many, many, many credits, which is a wonderful thing to say. A lot of times you talk to a comic and you go, how many minutes can I squeeze out of the fact that they were once a background actor on a Conan sketch that only went on teamcoco.com? In your case, a lot of stuff going on. Now, did you move out to LA specifically for the comedy end, or were there like screenwriter aspirations to it too?
It was mostly comedy. I mean, as a Canadian, especially, once you get your green card, which was so much work, I was like, I'm either going to New York or LA. New York's a great city to move to if you just want to do stand up, but LA if you want to do stand up and then acting. So, and also I'm sick of winter. I don't ever want to touch a winter boot ever again for the rest of my life. So this is why I'm here.
What's the Canadian term for boot? Is it wellies?
No, it's still boot. It's absolutely.
Okay, when I was just in Canada, they were naming all these items that I should be prepping because it was going to be raining for a couple of days. And I remember there was a different term for rain boot.
You can
galoshes.
Yeah, you can say wellies as well. I mean, the biggest one is toque.
Toque. That was it. Yeah.
Yeah, winter hat. I say toque. I every now and then down here, and people are like, a what? Like, what is this exotic fruit that you just described?" It's like, no, it's a beanie, I guess. Also, I said pylon the other day, which apparently it's traffic cone down here. This country's crazy.
It for a comedy nerd like myself, I now know that 30 to 60% of all the comedy I like was either written by a Canadian, performed by a Canadian, produced by a Canadian, all of the above, or really somebody wishes that they were Canadian and they married a Canadian. Now, in your case, when did you start to realize that Canada was the comedy country?
I mean, it's really drilled into you in an early age, especially with the success of like Jim Carrey back in the day. You're just like, I just remember watching him just being like, oh, that guy's Canadian and he's doing all this, or like Dan Aykroyd, or like there's so Russell Peters as well, watching him like literally get so famous. And yeah, we're just goofy people. I think it's funny. We know that we're very funny people. It's just hard to get out of Canada to show other. So when we come to like the United States, we're like, come on, and like, look at me, like, come on, like, please, like, we're really like proving ourselves, I feel.
But there's the different layers of Canada. Like, for example, the comedy that you do to me has about 0% in common with Letterkenny, which I love. I love Letterkenny, but that's the very understated, almost British comedy form. Whereas I look at you as like a traditional American stand-up with your rhythm, like as in you probably grew up on the HBO Young Comedian specials, or if I
Yeah,
make
well,
you
that's
older than you are.
yeah. Well, thank you for the compliment. I actually like. It's funny. My act has changed since I moved to America. Of course, there is a certain style of doing comedy down here, less
Mhm.
self-deprecating. I remember when I first started doing comedy in Canada, you can get away with being self-deprecating in like the UK or Canada, but down here, if you're self-deprecating, you'd be like, "Hey, everyone, I'm garbage anyway," and then you feel the crowd going, "Okay, I guess he's garbage, so we're gonna think you're garbage." Then it's like they just follow your self-deprecation; they don't laugh at it. So, yeah, changing the way I do it to kind of blend in with society down here is something I've been working on.
When you see those early 5 minutes or the early sets of yours, do you cringe or do you still like your old material?
Absolutely cringe. It was at the time, I'm like, I'm killing, I'm the greatest ever. And then you look back, and I mean, that was over 15 years ago. I've been doing this for so long. So I was in my early 20s, and looking at someone in their early 20s, like, no one wants to listen to someone talk about what they think in their early 20s. Like, who cares? Like, it's like, yeah, I look back at it now. I don't obviously don't say any of that material anymore, but it's all part of the process.
Not to make it about me, but I was once heckled when I was 20 or 21, when I was just like reviewing these stand-up shows here in New York. And Rich Voss saw me like taking notes on the show because I was going to review it. And he's like, "Hey, you, why are you writing?" I said, "I'm reviewing the show." And eventually the show just became about me. Like every
Yeah.
time a joke bombed, you'd be like, "Did the reviewer like it?" Oh, oh. And it was horrifying. But at one point he goes, "Who's your favorite comedian?" And I named who my favorite comedian was, and he said something like, "Oh, what do you know? You're 20." And I
Yeah.
remember being so offended by that. And then now I'm going, of course I didn't have good comedy taste. I was 20.
Yeah. I was told that frequently when I was 2021. Like hosts of shows, MCs, they'd be like, you know what, just say whatever the fuck you want up there. You're 20. No one gives a shit what you think anyway. So it's like, okay, I guess I'm just going to develop. And now I'm happy to report I'm a crusty old man. So now people will listen to me. And if they don't, I demand it.
Yeah, the era of that for me when I was getting into comedy, I used to hate the "oh, my wife is blah blah blah" material. And now I go, why are you talking about Pop Tarts? How
Yeah.
can you do that? Now, as a fan, as a connoisseur, do you still like the same comedians that you grew up watching?
I mean, it changes. To be completely honest with you, the longer I do stand up, the more I can't even really watch stand up anymore. It's
That's an awesome thing. Okay, I'm going to interrupt you. I find that every comedy person I ask, like, what are you watching on TV? They mention horror and drama stuff. No comedy, 0% comedy, because that's work.
yeah, you see the framework of it, and also you start, the longer you do it, you start to recognize people, and you're like, oh, I know this guy, and well, I can't get into this because I know how he is, or
Yeah.
we just had drinks the other night, and I don't believe any of this. So yeah, my concept of comedy and what entertains me has changed drastically. So yeah, I do watch a lot of weird TV. I watch a lot of reality shows too. Like I'm watching a lot of Below Deck and stuff like that.
Okay.
Like a lot of stupid stuff. There are some comedy. There are some comedians I can watch. I can watch Rory Scovel any day of the week. Like he absolutely kills me. Comedians like Fahim Anwar, like Deborah DiGiovanni, like there's or my good friend Steph Tolev. My wife's a comedian as well, Julia Hladkowicz. Super goofy. I mean, I'm not just saying that because she can hear me from the next room.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's definitely changes over time. But it's one of those things where it's like because it's my work. It's like when I'm watching it on my off time, I'm like, oh, like I'm supposed to relax here.
But I'd have to imagine that your first 5 to 10 years in comedy, you were spending your off time on comedy as well. You eventually hit that burnout point where you went, okay, so my hobby can't be my work anymore. This is too much.
Yeah, listening to every episode of WTF and like just hearing them talk about comedy. It's very exciting at the time. And I remember a lot of older comics being like, enjoy the process while you're young. Like that's the biggest thing. Enjoy the process because it's very exciting. And then you get to a certain age doing comedy and you're like, oh, I guess I'm just doing this the rest of my life. And I have to focus on other things a little bit. And also you have to live a life too, to talk about it. That's what I learned. That was my biggest lesson is I was so obsessed with comedy all the time. And then I'm just talking about comedy all the time. It's like, well, no, I have to live so I can have relatable things to talk about.
The first 500 or so episodes of WTF, I loved it. And then somewhere around there, you started listening and you're like, he has nothing to be angry about anymore. He's struggling with finding stuff to be bitter about because he evolved into his dreams. He finally has his dream job. He's more successful than he ever thought he would be. And all of his friends are celebrities now. It's almost like this Howard Stern thing where you listen and go, oh man, that must be the hardest part of the job, feigning anger.
Yeah, it just like that's the thing. I see Mark Maron at the Comedy Store every now and then, and I just look at him. I'm like, oh, you're doing all the rooms here, and you're just having a nice time, and it's he's good, not a worry in the world. But that's the thing when you build your career on me, like I'm a little crusty. Well, I know everything, and it's just, and then everything's fine. It's like, well, what do you do? But no, he looks great.
Right, and back to being a husband and wife set of comedians. Will you ever do that, like, we tour together thing, the way that Moshe Kasher and Natasha Leggero were able to call it the honeymoon tour?
Yeah, we do sometimes because a lot of gigs. Yeah, sometimes we do because a lot of clubs like that they only have to spend money on one hotel room. That's a bit of money saved for them. And yeah, so like sometimes she'll headline, I'll open, or vice versa kind of thing. And it just is like an excuse to travel with your loved one as well. Like I'm doing a show in New Orleans in a couple of weeks, and she's coming along, and we're just gonna have a nice old time in New Orleans as well as doing a show. So it's it's nice. It works.
Part of my ignorance here, does the crowd know that you two are married, or does that get brought up in the middle of one of the sets?
It's funny. I always bring it up on stage, especially if she goes before me. I'm like, because she has a lot of jokes about her dumb husband. And I'm like, hey, I'm that idiot, mustached moron she was talking about. Sometimes she doesn't want it to be known. And I get that because then it's like some crutch being like, or it looks like she's like, oh, she's afraid that people will be like, oh, she's only here because of him kind of thing or whatever. So Nepo sometimes
baby, whatever that term is in comedy.
Yeah, exactly. Whatever a Nepo baby wife husband version is. Yeah.
Do you have the domain and or social media handles for Mustache Moron?
No, but I need it. I'm working on a website, and I think that's the one. I think that could be it.
Well, 3 softball questions, and then I'll let you go. Are you ready, Matt?
I'm ready.
First one, the OnlyFans stuff. That is why we were connected. The LMAOF. That time I got it correct. Usually I do not get it correctly. I reverse the letters, but LMAOF is where we're going to be seeing you. Are we allowed to know what's next for you otherwise between that, the New Orleans gig, etc.?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just working on touring as much as possible. I'm slowly growing a social media base, and I've just been asking people.
You're huge. Come on.
It's not that big, but I've been asking people where they want to see me, and then I've just been booking clubs in those towns. So it's taken a lot of work, but I am working on just touring across America finally. So just pay attention to my Instagram, and I'll be posting all my shows there.
Got it. Question number 2. When somebody sees you in Canada versus the US, is it the same material, or do you get all local and specific? Like you change the names of the chains that you reference and you say, so the Tragically Hip were on the other day. Do you do that kind of thing?
I mean, absolutely. I just played Winnipeg, and because I like to wear like a Hawaiian shirt on stage and stuff like that. And down here I can be like, hey everyone, I know I look like I sell cocaine at Trader Joe's kind of thing, and it usually gets a laugh. There's obviously no Trader Joe's in Canada, so I'll be like, oh, I know I look like I sell cocaine at Canadian Tire or whatever like store they have up there. So yeah, it definitely changes a little bit. I mean, I can say toque up there, and that's nice.
Oh, that was a callback. Oh,
yeah.
I see what you did there. It's almost like you do this for a living.
Yeah.
And the last question I have for you is, I like to find out that about comedians, that there is life off stage, that they're not, most comedians that you meet they don't tell one joke if they're not on stage, not doing an interview, not writing an article, not doing a social media post, etc. So what's your number 2 hobby when you're not working and you're not being a great husband and a dog dad and all that kind of stuff?
Oh man, that's tough because I do like to tinker around and make little videos. I got a big green screen studio, and I'd like to edit videos and stuff like that, which is funny because that's every comedian's number one complaint right now, is that we have to film all of our stand-up sets and edit them into clips for Instagram and all that. And in my head, I'm just like, I kind of like doing that. I don't I kind of like the control. I like filming stuff. I also I run a lot. I'm running the Turkey Trot in LA, like 10K.
Is that a 7K or a 5K?
It's 10K.
10K, nice.
Kilometer, which is a Canadian measurement. And I mean, I read, but it is true. It's when I'm off stage, I'm actually a kind of a quiet down person. I kind of keep to myself a lot. And people are always like, after shows, they're like, hey, do you want to smoke a joint with us? Do you want to hang out? And I'm always like, you're going to be way more disappointed because I'm not like I am on stage. When I'm on stage, I'm really letting loose. When I'm off stage, I want to go to bed.
I make every interview I ever can about David Lee Roth and Van Halen one of my obsessions. It's like, you love Diamond Dave. You don't like David Lee Roth off the stage. You just want Diamond Dave. And if they were smoking the joint with you, they're not getting Diamond Dave.
Yeah, you don't want to hang out and talk to me about how much I actually love vacuuming my house. That's not a conversation you want to have with me because I'd really love it.
Paltrocast.